occupied territory on the far left coast. You're listening to On the Move with Mack Worley III.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, patriots and preppers, I'm Mack Worley III, and this is On the Move, the show that attempts to inspire you to stand up for your rights. As I've said before, this is not my show, this is your show. This is your grassroots activism movement. It's the On the Move movement. It cannot function without you, however. It's bigger than one man. It's definitely bigger than me. I want to thank each and every one of you for standing up for your rights and for your patriotism, and also for taking the time to get involved. With that said, thank you for tuning in. Today is going to be a really good show. Today is January 5th, 2014, and today's episode is titled, Denver is Now 2 Miles High. It's the first episode of the new year, so we're going to make sure we kick things off right. We're going to be covering many topics today, a whole bunch of them, and I'm willing to talk about anything that you guys want to talk about as well. All you got to do is give us a call. The number is 619-924-0986, 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at onthemoveshow@gmail.com. Some of the topics we're going to be covering today have basically been in the news, and we'll be covering, like I said, the legalization of marijuana in Colorado and Washington. We're going to talk about the minimum wage, and if we have time, we're also going to be covering the female fitness standards and how they've changed. We're also going to cover much, much more. So, like I said, we're going to be taking your listener calls and reading emails, and if you'd like to join the conversation today, again, that number is 619-924-0986, or you could email the show at onthemoveshow@gmail.com. Don't forget to check us out at onthemoveshow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/onthemoveshow, facebook.com/onthemoveshow, twitter.com/onthemoveshow, and youtube.com/onthemoveshow. You can also check out our stores on onthemoveshow.com by clicking the shop link on our homepage. We got 100 or so products on there for sale, ranging from freeze-dried food to gear to show merchandise to clothes to drinkware to bumper stickers and a whole lot more on there. Your purchases will go toward making On the Move bigger and better. We really, really appreciate your support. Okay, moving on. So the first segment of today's show, we're going to call Today in History. It's something I like to do, and we talk about what happened at this point in time years ago in the past. So according to Ford.com, after the success of the moving assembly line, Henry Ford had another transformative idea. In January of 1914, today, he startled the world by announcing that Ford Motor Company would pay $5 a day to its workers, which was completely unheard of at the time. I believe at the time most workers were making about $2.84 per day. So the pay increase would also be accompanied by a shorter workday. They used to work 9 hours, and he was projecting to have them work 8. So while this rate didn't automatically apply to every worker, it more than doubled the average auto worker's wage. So while Henry's primary objective was to reduce the attrition, because labor turnover in that assembly line was pretty monotonous work, so a lot of people were quitting. All the newspapers basically glorified him and said that it was an extraordinary gesture of goodwill. His actions caused thousands of workers to flock to Detroit after Ford's announcement. Thousands of prospective workers showed up from Ford's Motor Company employment office. People surged towards Detroit from the American South and nations of Europe. As expected, employee turnover diminished, and by creating this 8-hour workday, Ford could run 3 shifts instead of 2, which increased his productivity. Henry Ford had reasoned that since it was now possible to build inexpensive cars in volume, more of them would be sold if employees could afford to buy them. The $5 a day helped better the lot of all American workers and contributed to the emergence of the American middle class. In the process, Henry Ford had changed manufacturing forever. It's no coincidence that we have selected this event for Today in History. We'll be discussing this again later in the episode when we cover the minimum wage. Just remember this for now, and we'll come back to it. But for now, it's time for my favorite part of the show. It's a segment that we're calling The Weekly Defender.
And now it's time for The Weekly Defender. You have the right to defend your life, the right to defend your family, and the right to defend your freedom.
All right, so in this segment, we report about armed citizens in the news who have used their firearms to defend their family, their property, or themselves. Our first weekly defender is the 90-year-old owner of R&J Laundromat in Dayton, Ohio. In 2010, he was robbed and beaten up. But since then, he's taken some measures to make sure that this never happens again. And I have a clip here from a news report based on what happened, and I will play it for you.
Happy New Year! Our big story tonight is about our new hero, a gun-toting 90-year-old man fighting back after a crook tries to rob his business.
Shelby Costo shows us how the man kept his cool while packing some heat.
The guy in the hoodie came into the R&J Laundromat last night and asked the owner, 90-year-old George Hicks, for change, but then demanded money from the elderly man. But Hicks wasn't having it. He grabbed his gun and chased the robber out the door.
Did he take any money?
No, he didn't. No. When he shoved me, I jumped up and went for my gun, and when I went for my gun, I said, I'll blow your brains out, and he was gone.
I'm not going to put up with it here.
Tom Morrow owns the Third Base drive-thru. Back in September, he didn't hesitate to protect his business when two masked men came in to rob him. Morrow grabbed his gun and shot one of the robbers in the chest.
Sometimes you just have to take care of things yourself.
As business owners, Morrow says they have the right to protect themselves, their employees, and property.
I spend 7 days a week here, and I really don't want people coming here taking stuff that doesn't belong to them.
Back at the laundromat, this isn't the first time the business owner has been targeted. We talked to Mr. Hicks back in 2010 when he was beat up and robbed inside his business.
The next thing I know, I was laying in the floor, him beating the hell out of me with his fist.
But last night was a different story. Hicks was ready and was packing heat.
I'm surprised that a 90-year-old's carrying a gun, but as long as he knows how to do it, I want to shake the man's hand.
In Dayton, I'm Shelby Costo for Fox 45 News.
Now, if you recognize the creep in the hoodie, call Dayton Police.
Okay, so that's an interesting story of how a elderly man has used a firearm to defend himself. I think that's pretty amazing. I want to shake that man's hand too. He's taken his defense in his own hands, and one thing that most people don't actually know is that the police aren't actually there to protect you. They have actually no duty to protect you, and that's actually a Supreme Court finding. Somebody had basically sued the police department because they called the police because somebody had home invaded their house, and I believe the woman was being raped. And anyway, she called the police, and she saw them drive by, and the police never stopped. She called again, and the police never came back. And anyway, she sued the police, and the police basically it came out that the ruling ended up being that the police have absolutely no duty to protect you. So you can't sue the police in that scenario for not protecting you. Regardless, that finding was dangerous because they have absolutely no obligation to protect you. And not only that, but they can't protect you. They can't protect you from everything that happens. And average police response time is something crazy anyway. You could be being assaulted for 30 minutes before the police even show up. And like I said, they have no duty to protect you. And a lot of these people, and I'm not blaming them, they're looking out after their own skin. A lot of them would rather respond and investigate than respond to an actual attack or something that could risk their life. If they're the only one there, they'd wait for backup before they rush in to defend you or protect you. So anyway, it's something to think about. Keep in mind that they don't have to defend you or they don't have to protect you, and you need to have ways to defend yourself. Anyway, our next weekly defender we found on FoxNews.com. It's actually a group of defenders. The story goes, when budget woes reduced the sheriff's department in one rural Oregon county to a bare-bones force, residents decided to take matters into their own hands, creating an armed patrol group in defiance of local officials. I found the story on foxnews.com. Their decision has raised safety concerns with the county government, which would prefer residents instead hike their own taxes to fund the hiring of trained deputies. But despite the risks, the move stands as a unique, some would say innovative, response to one county's most severe local budget crunches. The government in Josephine County, where nearly 70% of the land is owned by the U.S. government, had long relied on federal timber subsidies to pay the bills. When the feds terminated the funds, county officials scrambled to pass a May 2012 tax levy to make up the nearly $7.5 million budget shortfall. However, the county's residents voted against the levy, and as a result, the Josephine County Sheriff was gutted. The office of the sheriff was gutted. The major crimes unit closed, dozens of prisoners were released from the county jail, and the department reduced operations to Monday through Friday, 8 hours a day. The sheriff's office then issued a press release announcing their deputies would only be responding to what they deemed life-threatening situations. Not only did the sheriff's office narrow its scope to life-threatening situations, but it even encouraged people who felt unsafe to relocate. Their statement said, the sheriff's office regretfully advises that if you know you are in a potentially volatile situation, for example, you are a protected person in a restraining order that you believe the respondent may violate, you may want to consider relocating to an area with adequate law enforcement services. Though the response team members do legally carry firearms, Sillick said, the team's main goal is to provide a deterrence presence, and that none of them have ever fired a shot. And I'm assuming when they say that, they're referring to in defense, not in practice, but it doesn't clarify, so I don't really know. He said that those involved in this group believe that there is no substitute for well-trained law enforcement, but they feel they have no choice other than to protect their community. We believe responsible citizens doing responsible things make it hard for criminals to do irresponsible things, he said. So I want to know what you guys think about this. Do you think that this is a good thing? Do you think this is a bad thing? I'm really curious to know your take on this. The phone number to call in is 619-924-0986, 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at onthemoveshow@gmail.com. In my opinion, I'm a big fan of this. I think it's a good thing for several different reasons. Number one, I think it does a really good job of being a deterrent to crime. Just the sheer fact that, first of all, it made news, so people know that they're out there, but also people can see them out there and they're promoting themselves and they're deterring crime. The mere presence of armed citizens will deter crime. One more reason why I'm a big fan of this is because we don't need the government to protect us. Like I said, they have absolutely no obligation to protect us, first of all. So why do we have them there in this protective manner where we're supposed to feel all warm and cozy with this blanket of government wrapped around us, but they're not there to protect us. The only thing that they protect is their own interests. The only thing they serve is themselves. So, to me, it feels like these people are being punished for not passing a levy. I am positive that there's other things that this community could have cut other than their sheriff's office. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know everything. I don't have all the facts. But to me, that just seems like one of those very similar situations that we saw when the government was shut down, how things were closed basically to create the maximum amount of pain on the people, on the populace. When the White House was closing all the national parks and stuff while the government was shut down. And they were doing this in a way where they're actually spending more money to ensure people stay out of them. So, I don't know. To me, it just seems like these people are being punished in regards to this. But anyway, I love hearing about how law-abiding citizens use firearms to protect themselves. You have a right to defend your family. You have a right to defend your life, and you have a right to defend your freedom. We on the Move support your rights. If you have a story about how you were lawfully defending yourself, or how, or you would like to comment on one of these stories, we'd like to hear from you. Give us a call. The number is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at onthemoveshow@gmail.com. If you don't want to be on the air, if you're a little shy or something, that's fine. Go ahead and send us an email and let us know what you have to think. Anyway, at this point, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be back in about a minute or so.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support. Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, TOSHA, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
All right, we're back. I appreciate you all sticking with us. So, before we move on to our next segment, I have something that I have recently found out, and I would like to just put some information out there about this, and basically just make sure everybody is aware of it. Obama has recently passed he's written a executive order. It's basically been a back way of doing gun control. Anyway, I have here an article written by Michael Thalen. He says the Obama administration announced 2 new executive orders on gun control Friday after countless other attempts to erode the Second Amendment rights after countless other attempts to erode Second Amendment rights failed to gain public support. Anyway, he talks about how these things are basically a backdoor gun confiscation. So, anyway, I just thought people may need to look into this, and I still don't know enough about this really, but it appears to me like they're looking at changing the way that they identify who is mentally ill, and a lot of it has to do with the actual background check. So they're changing the way that they clarify it. You know, in my opinion, this is actually one thing that's pretty scary that they're looking into, and it's something I've thought about for quite some time, is how they actually will identify people as mentally ill and how that will affect your gun rights. So say we have somebody that has post-traumatic stress disorder, and they're diagnosed, they served in the military, they served their country, they fought in war, and now they come back home, and they're having a bit of stress because of this, and you know, it turns into a post-traumatic stress disorder. Is it really a good idea for us to start looking at making these people considered mentally ill, to make them unable to get firearms? Because in my opinion, it's already difficult enough to get people in the military, from what I've seen, to basically admit that they have a problem or to go seek medical help, especially any kind of mental health, stress issues, things like that. People don't want to have that kind of stuff affiliated with their permanent record in the military, and it can actually affect their career. You know, a lot of them are really concerned with that, and they don't want to do that. Now, if you couple that kind of thing that will negatively impact their military career and also get them basically unable to bear arms, take away their right to bear arms, I'm quite certain that you're going to run into a situation where a lot of people aren't reporting the fact that they're having issues, and who knows what PTSD will do untreated with these people for that long of a time. Many people will try to hide it and do everything they can, but I mean, I'm sure it will cause problems. You'll probably see suicide rates up in the military. You'll see, you know, suicides up just in general because people don't want to go get help because they're afraid that the government will take away their right to bear arms. Anyway, I think this is something that we need to be paying attention to because Obama has already said that, if Congress won't do it, he has no problem going around them. So, he's referred to that in different times where he wasn't necessarily talking about gun control, but he has said that he has no problem bypassing Congress. Here, I'll play a quick little montage here of him saying how he will bypass Congress.
The Senate blocked a bill that would have created this commission. So I'll issue an executive order that will allow us to go forward because I refuse to pass this problem on to another generation of Americans. I know some here wish that I could just bypass Congress and change the law myself. I know there's some folks who wish I could just bypass Congress. I can't. Now, I know some people want me to bypass Congress and change the laws on my own. Believe me. And believe me, right now dealing with Congress, the idea but believe me, the idea of doing things on my own is very tempting.
So there you go. His words, not mine. He has absolutely no problem going around Congress and bypassing them entirely through executive order. He knows he's not going to be able to get the kind of support that he wants and the kind of support that he's tried to get. He has tried and failed several times now to get any kind of real movable like gun control on the record here. He's trying to change the policies, and he's doing it through executive orders now. So anyway, that's not even what this show is about today. I just thought I'd mention it. I just thought I'd bring it up because it's something to think about. It's also something that we need to be paying attention to because a president that will bypass Congress is a president that is openly advocating against checks and balances, and that's what our government was established on, is checks and balances. We have 3 branches of government that were meant to check and balance each other, and the fact that he's trying to get around that, in my opinion, it's unconstitutional. But that's just me. I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I do know that the executive branch and executive orders are only supposed to be able to basically organize and create policies for and within the federal government branches inside the executive branch. So what that means is he's only allowed to create policies that will regulate like the EPA and things like that, things that are within the executive branch of the government. So he can't just make big changes to laws through executive orders, but yet he seems to be doing that. Just like he's changing Obamacare, the law relating to the Affordable Care Act, he's deciding what laws he's going to enforce, which ones he's not. He doesn't have the constitutional authority to do that, but that doesn't seem to bother him. Anyway, like I said, not part of the show. That's not what I was trying to make the show about today, but I found out about it just recently, and I wanted to make sure I got that out there. And at this point, we're going to move on to the next segment of the show, and it's what we like to call the Mack Attack.
It's time for the Mack Attack!
All right. In this segment of the show, I like to give you my take on outrageous events in the news. So what we're going to be talking about today is the legalization of marijuana in Colorado and Washington. As most of you know, Colorado began sales of recreational marijuana at the beginning of this year. Thousands gathered in Colorado to be part of this historical moment. The demand was so high they began to mark up prices for their products. They actually doubled the prices that you see in the actual medical marijuana dispensaries in Colorado. So However, this price increase, this price gouge, it did not seem to deter the buyers. It's projected that the sales of marijuana for recreational use will earn Colorado approximately $67 million per year. So right now I have a clip here in regards to what happened in Colorado. I'll go ahead and play it for you all.
And of course, Colorado is now living with one of the most talked about new laws in America. It is the first state to legalize the sale of marijuana for recreational use, and the change could generate $67 million a year for the state budget. But police are now on alert for possible side effects, including drivers behind the wheel. And here's ABC's Clayton Sandell.
For Colorado's new retail pot market, today lines are long and sales brisk.
It has been so busy. We haven't stopped from the minute we've opened the doors.
At this shop in Denver, plenty of customers and product. Smokable, drinkable, and from this bakery, edible.
We take the marijuana plant and we infuse it with regular butter. Tastes like homemade.
The pot boom is creating thousands of jobs and big growth.
Basically, in the next 6 months, we'll be looking at increasing our production by about 5 times.
The state expected to haul in $67 million in weed taxes a year. Denver is now posting these pot rules, just as critics are warning that for teens, marijuana is more dangerous than ever.
If we don't keep young people from smoking marijuana, there will be a brain drain inside of this state.
And police say they're worried about more people driving stoned. Just a couple of hits could put you over the limit.
Marijuana impacts your judgment. It impacts your ability to react. If you're impaired by a substance, you can't drive. End of story.
The federal government still considers marijuana illegal, but for now is allowing Colorado's experiment. But the Justice Department says it won't look the other way if more teens start using pot, if drug cartels become bigger players, or if weed starts crossing state lines. That's one of the reasons at Denver's airport only the planes can get high. Getting busted means a $1,000 fine.
You guys can step on up, please.
Clayton Sandell, ABC News, Denver.
Only the planes can get high. That's funny. So, anyway, the story about this, it's pretty sensational. A lot of people are really excited. A lot of people think it's a huge leap, in civil rights and all that. But one thing that I'd actually like to talk about is there's a story that's been circulating around the internet since Colorado began selling weed legally. And the story reports that 37 people died due to marijuana overdoses after purchasing their weed at these stores legally. That's pretty amazing. 37 people died. Oh, that's crazy. Well, anyway, it's been proven that this is a hoax. According to drugabuse.gov, it's actually not even possible to overdose on marijuana. So they have it right on a government website. It's not possible. It's been proven that that's a hoax anyway. So don't buy into that. There's a lot of people that are trying to basically rain on the parade of these pot smokers, all right? So why is Colorado already selling marijuana legally, but Washington isn't? I'm living in Washington right now, Vancouver, Washington, and I've been researching at this because I wasn't sure what the difference is and what was going on. I'd actually like to cover an event or something that Washington is doing. I have a YouTube channel. I'd like to go out and do a YouTube video on people who are out standing in line and trying to buy some legal weed for the first time in Washington's history. So anyway, I looked into it and I found out that Colorado is actually about 6 months ahead of Washington. And the reason for that is because they actually use their medical marijuana system to actually build their recreational sales system. Washington, on the other hand, has built their recreational marijuana system from scratch. So this means that they're going to be taking a lot longer to do it, and they're not going to be selling weed legally until about June of 2014 at the very earliest. So one thing that I like about the fact that recreational marijuana is now legal is the fact that we're going to be earning taxes from the sale of this drug, and it's going to be able to be used in our community. But there are some problems that come with that, and one thing is I'm seeing it. If I heard somewhere that they're taxing these things or the marijuana 33%. It's got a 33% tax rate. I don't know if that was in Washington or in Colorado, but that's absurd. 33%. what they're doing here is they're going to jack up the price already because of the demand, which you see that they're already doubling the price that people can get in medical marijuana dispensaries. But on top of which, now they're taxing it 33%. They're going to create an issue here with people just going back to the black market to purchase their weed. And now that it's legal to have it, people are just going to have it now, and they're going to buy it through basically the black market, and they're going to have it a whole lot cheaper. It's important to keep the price low, but again, this is free market. So I'm hoping that the government stays out of the way and doesn't tax the crap out of the out of the recreational marijuana industry, because that would allow them to keep their prices low, which will lead to other good results. One of my main things I don't like about man, I keep saying medical marijuana. Anyway, one of the main things I don't like about prohibiting these kind of drugs is it empowers the cartels. These drugs basically create big money for these cartels, and it allows them to gain a lot of power from this money. They can buy guns, and they can buy more drugs, and they can create influence with the money that they have by greasing palms of politicians all over the place. So, if we are not really impacting the sale of the legal of the illegal drugs, then we're actually not really impacting the cartels at all. The cartels will still continue to do business with people who have contacts with the black market, and those people will be buying it cheaper. We'll probably be getting people who normally wouldn't have had anything to do with it, but now because it's illegal, they'll go for the bargain buy in the black market, and they'll get their marijuana cheaper, and now it'll be legal for them to have it. So we're going to end up seeing all these legal stores where you can buy marijuana. The only people that will be buying that are people that probably wouldn't have gotten marijuana in the first place, and they're getting it as almost like a novelty just to see what it is, because they don't have any contacts within the black market. And then maybe one day they will, and they'll stop buying it from these stores. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just not really thinking this out fully. I think this is what's going to happen, in my opinion. If the government keeps taxing the crap out of this, and if they keep gouging prices on the recreational marijuana. Anyway, I have here a clip of another news organization here. They were covering the possible march towards all 50 states headed towards legalization of marijuana. I'll go ahead and play it for y'all.
It's time now to check out the state of the states when it comes to marijuana law. It's an issue like same-sex marriage that the Beltway won't touch, but states are addressing head-on. Only 2 states, Washington and Colorado, allow adults to use marijuana recreationally. They are now grappling with how to run a system that is counter to federal law. Another 17 states, mostly in the West and Northeast, allow marijuana for medical use. An effort in Maine to extend medical marijuana to all adults is picking up steam now. A bill to allow possession of up to 2.5 ounces and tax the drug at $50 per ounce made it out of a legislative committee just yesterday. In Colorado, the state's medical marijuana enforcement division is getting low marks as it transitions to drop the medical from its name. Lawmakers are up in arms over an audit that found it plagued by low funding, poor oversight, and a slow permitting process. I'm sure the funding and permitting would pick up if you could just use pot to shoot bullets. To find out the state of the country's patchwork of marijuana laws, we turn to David Downs. David covers the evolving marijuana laws as the editor of the Smell the Truth blog. Welcome inside the War Room, David.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
So, David, how is the Colorado experiment going right now? What's the state of the experiment?
I think it's fair to call it growing pains. The Department of Revenue started the Medical Marijuana Enforcement Division just a couple years ago, and they've seen fluctuating budgets as well as the realities of enforcing policy differ widely from what it looked like on the paper.
Yeah. So when you say they're having growing pains, this is all new terrain for everyone. So people are just kind of feeling out how it's going to work.
We're talking about daylighting a black market industry, and the Department of Revenue has experience doing that in Colorado with gambling. And so, when the way they did it with gambling, they thought I'd give it over to them, and now it's going to take some time to put together.
So is Washington State facing the same difficulties as Colorado?
Washington is even earlier along in the process. They just hired their their marijuana consultant, Mark Kleiman, and he's going to be helping them outline exactly how to run their production, distribution, transportation, the whole thing, set taxes.
Yeah, and he comes from California. He's a UCLA
professor.
What is that role? Is that role going to happen or exist in each of the 50 states, or is this something that because there's no oversight, they're just trying to figure a good way out of doing it?
Yeah, I mean, they really are in uncharted territory as a state, and Kleiman represents probably the best of the breed in terms of knowledge about the interaction between the market and policy and ways to prevent some unintended consequences.
Well, let's look at some of the other states as well. According to the legalization advocacy group, Marijuana Policy Project, there are 8 states from New Hampshire to Hawaii that could follow the path to legalization for adults. What sort of roadblocks do these proponents have to overcome?
Many of them are institutional. You're going to see in the Maine case significant issues being raised in the Senate, as well as, in New York, you're seeing a medical marijuana bill that died in the Senate last year, and a new one that's starting right now is going to face more roadblocks in the Senate. You're dealing with powerfully entrenched interests that have spent, 70 years enforcing drug policy, and any changes to marijuana law moves some people's cheese around the border. Right,
and we hear that the Justice Department is going to weigh in on this in one way or another soon, but soon has never been defined. What do you expect? I mean, just as a guess or a hunch, Eric Holder's next move is going to be with regards to states like Colorado and Washington.
The scuttlebutt is that they could sue to prevent the implementation of those programs, and that lawsuit could end up in front of the Supreme Court the way the DOMA situation has.
Yeah, you bring up the DOMA situation. I'm glad you did. Gay marriage is another big state versus, the people issue, or state versus federal issue. A recent Quinnipiac poll shows that marijuana legalization has more support than same-sex marriage, and we've heard about all these same-sex marriage support at an age levels up to 65 years and older. It's as high as 67% in younger voters. So why is marijuana lagging behind same-sex marriage and becoming legal at the state level if this popularity actually has it ahead?
That's a great question. It comes down to values for a certain amount of people. To a certain degree, being soft on crime or soft on drugs will really hold up politicians in a way that we're not seeing with the gay rights issue. Like some of your other correspondents mentioned earlier, politicians are flipping left and right on this. But you're going to see the politicians lead from behind, if they lead at all, with regard to marijuana law reform.
And that's interesting. Politics. I always think of this as first of all, it was a political hot button to say you'd even tried pot. Now that seems to be an accepted, almost a normal thing for someone running for office. But when you say the politicians are going to be lagging behind or leading from behind, how soon do you think it's going to be politically expedient to say that you favor marijuana legalization?
Well, I mean, you can look at here in California where you have Representative Tom Amiano, who represents San Francisco, who's a vociferous advocate in the California legislature. But even he says that here in California, the majority of his fellow lawmakers are, quote, afraid of their own shadow with regard to changing marijuana law. So try to imagine the situation playing out in South Dakota or any deeply red state, and you can just imagine how hard it's going to be.
Of course, yeah. And what's compelling, too, is this whole idea of taxing. You're going to tax so heavily this marijuana. How soon will it be so taxed that people are just going to start going back to the black market and buying their pot the way they have forever?
Well, that's something Kleiman's really going to struggle with in Washington. Marijuana is widely available in this country. 10th graders, like 71% of them report easy or very easy access to it. The most common price Americans pay for marijuana is $0. It's gifted to them by friends. So any type of taxation above and beyond the actual cost to produce is going to run into the reality on the street where pot's widely available and pretty cheap.
Right. I love when 10th graders are the demographic that people are talking about. It's just, so 10th grade, we polled 10th graders. I think we've over-polled when we're at 10th grade.
Well, yeah, I mean, everyone talks about keeping this drug away from kids, and that's why how they're against these changes to laws. And it's important to remember that for decades, the drug's been widely available.
Yeah, well, the blog is called Smell the Truth. David Downs, thanks so much for these insights. It is not just as simple as, okay, you can have recreational pot. There's so many layers to this. Appreciate you for helping us figure that out. Up next.
Okay, so I think it is as simple as just saying you can have recreational pot. I really don't think it's that complicated of an issue. So far it's unclear how the legalization of marijuana will actually affect the state and the country. But, one thing is for certain, if you truly believe in individual liberty and limited government, then this was a win for you. Weed was banned because hemp competed against the paper and fiber industry, not because it's bad for you. So let's just get that out there first of all. It's not because it was bad for you that it was eliminated. It was competition. These lobbyist groups inside the paper and fiber industry, they had a lot of clout, and they switched the name of marijuana. It wasn't even, nobody was referring to it as marijuana at that time. It was called cannabis. People didn't know what marijuana was. They were spreading all sorts of lies and propaganda about what marijuana did to people. They were saying that people who smoke marijuana will go out and commit all these crimes, and they basically became lunatics. It's obviously not the case. In fact, it's probably the exact opposite in regards to marijuana itself. Marijuana typically makes people lazy and makes people just want to sit around and eat, watch TV. So you don't really hear people going out and getting in fights after they smoke a joint or something. So anyway, that's why it was actually banned. So, even if it was banned because it's bad for you, which it was not, governments are not a moral authority. Throughout history, no one has inflicted more injustice and death upon individuals than government. But I digress. How can you be okay with alcohol and tobacco, but have a problem with marijuana? Isn't that a bit hypocritical? And even if you are against all those things, are you honestly calling for the government to reinstate the prohibition of alcohol? It didn't really work out very well the first time. The prohibition back in the day, it actually created a whole lot of crime. It created this underground market. It created an unregulated, untaxed black market for these for alcohol. And again, just like we're seeing now with the drug prohibition, it created a very similar situation where these underground organizations sprung up and they started getting more and more power, and eventually they got to the point where they started rivaling the government in strength. It's something to think about. It is just as easy as waving a magic wand and saying, boom, recreational marijuana for everyone. It's legal. And it's not even just marijuana. All other drugs fall into that same category because they all do the same things. The bottom line is prohibition in general of anything is a bad idea because there will be an underground market for it, and it will create more crime. Anyway, I have a guest here on the line. I'm going to go ahead and take him after I take a quick commercial break. I'll be right back in about a minute.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support.
Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, TOSHA, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. All right, at this point in the show, we're going to go ahead and take some listener calls. I have John here on the line. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on in a second. But if you'd like to join the conversation, the telephone number is 619-924-0986, 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at onthemoveshow@gmail.com. All right, John, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, what's on your mind?
I just was listening to the controversy over marijuana.
Okay.
And, I just wanted to get my point across. I think that everybody has a different feeling about marijuana, about its pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, marijuana can be dangerous if it's used with poor judgment. And inappropriate situations, but marijuana can be a useful aid to helping people to feel better, who are sick, like, say, Parkinson's, or, let's say, ALS or multiple sclerosis.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not lower in pain. I can see its use there. So,
yeah, well, I mean, what we're talking about right now, and I understand what you're saying as far as the medical side of marijuana, a lot of this right now is referring to the actual just recreational use of marijuana, just like people use alcohol or tobacco.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that as far as just recreational use?
Well, I think it's a disturbance to a bunch of people, because if I'm walking down the street, I don't want to smell somebody's pot smoking. It makes me nauseated. Smelling somebody's pot,
Yeah.
But
well, the way the law is right now in Washington and Colorado, you're required to. You're not allowed to smoke it in public. I mean, people are. I've even went up to Seattle and seen people smoking weed out there, just right in a public setting. But technically, that's against the law. They are basically making it so you have to smoke it within private property, basically. So, or you can smoke it inside of a hotel room or something. But the problem with that is most hotels now have policies against drugs like that. So basically, most people are confined to smoking it in their house or a friend's house or something like that. But as far as your take, from what I understand, you're not for recreational smoking of marijuana, then?
I am not.
Okay, well, let me ask you, how do you feel about alcohol, then, in, like, cigarettes?
Alcohol and cigarettes, pretty much the same way.
Okay, so but in regards to that, I'm guessing you don't partake in alcohol and cigarettes, then, right?
Correct.
Okay, so with that,
but in fairness
you think that...
to them,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
But the other side is, in fairness to them, I do also feel that if it's their right to be able to drink or smoke, within reason, though. That's why we have laws.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, people aren't supposed to be going out there drinking and driving, and even now, I think there's a new law that was passed. I believe it's in Oregon, where you can't smoke with your kids in the car or something. Anybody under 18 or something like that. So, there are things. I'm sorry, go ahead.
They just passed here in the state of Illinois, where they are starting to set up shops for marijuana in a state that's $100 billion in debt in its pension crisis. So I think that it will help the state's finances if it's not passed to the point where people can't set up shop like the gas stations in our state is. But your state of Oregon or the state of Washington, for example, if they set up laws like alcohol and smoking, I don't see a problem with it.
Well, here's my issue, okay? Is if you make these things illegal, alcohol, tobacco, and even marijuana, okay? If we start making these things illegal, historically we've seen it that it does create underground markets. People, if they want something, they'll find it. If there's a demand, there will be a supply somewhere. It may not be legal. It'll be a black market, but people will find a way to buy it. People will find a way to get their hands on it somehow. And in that black market, it creates a lot of crime. We see that with the drug prohibition. We saw that back when alcohol was prohibited. And we also see that in places where prostitution is prohibited. We see a lot of dangerous, sleazy kind of situations, in these areas. Now, granted, all these things are moral issues, and I totally agree with you on that. If you have a moral objection to it or whatever, that's totally within your right. And I can understand why people can morally object to these things. I get it. It makes plenty of sense, especially if you have like a Judeo-Christian background. It makes sense to me, and I understand it. But the issue is, just like everything else in the society, you have a right to object to somebody else to anything. You can object to somebody else's lifestyle, anything like that, but you can't forcibly impose your will on them. And in doing that, you're violating their sovereignty.
And that's the issue we've had for so long, is the fact that, excuse me, my voice is terrible tonight. been over cold. The issue we've had for so long is that the government continues to expand and it continues to get more and more involved in our lives, more intrusive. And the fact is now that they want to dictate to us how we can, what we can do with marijuana, what we can't do with marijuana. So I think that people should have the right to do it, but within means, and just like alcohol and cigarettes. Now, of course, I think we should be educated I think our children should be educated on the dangers of it, just like cigarettes and alcohol.
Absolutely. And, I think that some of the proceeds are actually going towards anti-drug programs, and if they aren't, I'm pretty sure they should be, because that'd be a really great way to, get people educated on the effects of these kind of things. Make sure they at least have information going in. Like, for example, today it is impossible for anyone to not know that smoking cigarettes is bad for you. It's not possible to not know that nowadays. So that same kind of information needs to be out for marijuana and other drugs and stuff like that. And we can use tax money that out of the $67 million that just Colorado is projected to earn off of these taxes, that money, can obviously be used within the state to increase education. Not only that, but it can go towards education, period. It can go to our schools. It can go to our roads. There's a lot of projects that this money can go to. Hopefully it doesn't go to law enforcement to actually, increase these, arrests for, basically more drug offenses. One thing that's a big cash cow, this war on drugs, is it's created the prison industrial complex. And in my opinion, that's one of the really a vicious cycle that we have in our country where, we created a war on drugs and we're filling our system, our prison systems up with nonviolent felons now who their only crime was smoking marijuana. So, and not only just the marijuana users, but also other drugs as well. So I'm hoping that they don't use this tax money to try to basically just get more money so they can spend it on these anti-drug law enforcement campaigns. I hope they use it on something that it will build and educate. Anyway, what's your opinion on that?
I would say, going back to the topic at hand, is if you look at guns, you look at alcohol, cigarettes, and you look at marijuana, the money that is generated from these things are supposed to go to our roads, are supposed to go to schools, are supposed to go, to fixing certain things, education. But then the problem with marijuana is you could tax it as much as you want, but the funds that these states are taking are being improperly used. We see it at a local, a state, and federal level. What's happening with these funds, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. The government is one of the biggest wasteful organizations in the world, any government for that matter. You always have money that's lost, and you always have money that ends up lining people's pockets. So I totally agree.
And also, look at it like this. We're finding out that not only is liberalism a mental disorder, but we're also finding out that by legalizing marijuana, what's happening also is that it's dumbing down a society, lack for words. You have 71% of the country on some type of prescription drugs, whether it's from the elderly to the kids smoking. Everybody's on some type of drug. I don't know how to put this, but are taking it. And my opinion is it's just something to give younger people to help further distract them from what's going on in our country,
Yeah, and honestly, one of the things that I would like to point out, I'm glad you mentioned it, is, we've become a pill-popping society. You got a tummy ache, here's a pill. You got a headache, here's a pill. You have any kind of ailment, take this magic pill and it'll go away. One thing that you don't see covered in our news is the fact that the biggest cause of accidental death in our country is actually prescription pills. So
prescription pills, that's correct.
You don't see that with marijuana. It's not physically possible to overdose on marijuana. And like I said, it's right there on a government website, drugabuse.gov. All you got to do is go to that website, and it'll tell you it's not possible. I just looked it up. So Anyway, so with that in mind, you know, you were talking about how liberalism is a disease. It's a mental disorder. You know, I've never heard anybody say that, but it's kind of funny though. In my opinion, I think it's a very seductive thing for people out there. You know, it's very difficult for people to like will themselves to get out of something when they're getting something for free. But, you know, one problem we have is that when we have, you know, so many people on the mooch, you know, and people are just sitting here, you know, leeching off of people, leeching off society.
Yeah.
Let
me give you an example of marijuana. I mean, and I'm trying to remember here, but I could be wrong. You may have to look it up. But if I'm not mistaken, marijuana had more than 400 dangerous chemicals inside of it, and it contained up to 5 times the amount of tar that is found in cigarettes.
Well, I don't know about that, how accurate that is, because cigarettes are one of the most poisonous substances that you can put into your body. But regardless, even if we're talking about that, even if we're saying that it's dangerous, the government shouldn't be telling us even if something is dangerous, we shouldn't be doing it, because then we start running down that slippery slope.
That's a perfect example. That's why as I speak to you through this phone and through your microphone, this is where I'm trying to prove to you about liberalism's disorder in the head, because I'm dictating to you, I'm telling you what I think is wrong with marijuana by not actually solving the issue at hand. But there has to be a balance in the middle, and there's no balance, because you have to have there's always side effects and there's always positives, and the positives and the negatives. We have to look at it. Does the positives weigh out the negatives? Does the negatives outweigh the positive? So you have to look at it in those terms to see if it's really worth all of our trouble. But I would say give it a chance and let the people decide if that's what they want. And that's why we have voting boxes. Let the people decide.
You know, this is a constitutional republic. We're not a democracy. Right. One thing that I really am not a fan of is democracy, because it's really a tyrannical form of government. Honestly, it's the basis of socialism, and it's been quoted throughout history. Thomas Jefferson, or maybe it was Ben Franklin. I think it was Ben Franklin. He was saying that democracy is the difference between a lamb and 2 wolves voting for what's for dinner. Oh, I'm sorry, that's what it was. Tyranny is 2 wolves and a lamb voting for what they're going to have for dinner, and democracy is you know what? I've totally slaughtered that. Anyway, you get the gist of what I'm saying, though. Democracy basically
like a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, well, democracy makes it so that the majority can basically impose their will on the minority, and in that scenario of the 2 wolves, you know, they could vote to eat that lamb. You know what I mean? So, but a well-armed lamb prevents that. And this is a constitutional republic. We're not a democracy. We're not set up so that the majority can have its way anytime, because the whole point of the government is to protect the rights of individuals. And in imposing their will because somebody decided to play a moral authority, that's taking away rights from people. That's imposing will upon the minority. If we were not a constitutional republic, if we were actually a democracy, African Americans would never have been able to vote. We would have never gotten rid of slavery. You know, there's a lot of different things that throughout our history it's proven that democracy is really not a good form of government, and it really upsets me personally when I hear us talking about spreading democracy throughout the world, because it's not a good thing to spread. It's the road to socialism, as Karl Marx, the modern day creator, the modern day father of socialism, said. Those are his words.
I would agree. I actually do agree with you on that, but the problem is that you have people preaching you have people preaching at the highest levels of government everything that we always have standed for. And like I said, when it comes to our borders, when it comes to marijuana, it comes to our culture, and even speaking English. You know, that's how our country should be defined, by speaking English. It should be defined by It's laws. It's borders. That's why we have laws, to protect our citizens. And it should be involved by our culture. If we can't preserve our culture, then it's like me going to France and saying, I'm not going to speak your language or learn your language. I'm going to speak my own and not assimilate.
Yeah.
And it's fine that people come here from all over the world. You know, if somebody wants to go into a pot station or go into Colorado and go and smoke marijuana, we don't want it in 100 different languages. We want it in English. So all I'm saying is when it comes to marijuana, when it comes to all of these things in a constitutional democracy, or however you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, it should be simple as, how do I put this? It should be simple as putting butter on bread.
All right. Well, hey, I'm enjoying this call with you right now, but I got to cut to a quick break. Would you mind holding over for a minute?
Well, I actually got to go.
Oh, okay. No worries. Well, I appreciate you calling in. Thanks a lot, John.
You're welcome.
All right. Have a good one. All right. At this point, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break. I'll be back in about a minute.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support.
Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. Thank you for sticking with us. If you'd like to call into the show here, the number is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at onthemoveshow@gmail.com. Feel free to give us a call and let us know what you think about what we're talking about. And I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say in regards to the legalization of marijuana in Colorado, Washington, how it affects us, what you think, what the future impact of this will be, and basically your overall take on it. So anyway, in my opinion, the government does not have the right to tell you what you can or can't put into your own body. In my opinion, it's a slippery slope, as I was saying before. When we allow the government to have authority over what we put into our bodies, we allow them far too much power to influence our lives. The government does not willingly give up power, but they're always trying to expand their power. They're always trying to usurp more power. And they're not concerned for your rights. They're concerned for their power. Let me be clear. I'm not promoting the use of marijuana. I am, however, pointing out the hypocrisy of it being outlawed when we allow the sale and consumption of Newports and Jack Daniels. Okay, so, one thing that I'm actually concerned with, and it's kind of a side note here that a lot of people aren't really talking about, and I'd like to put it out there in terms of something that I really am adamant about, and that's gun rights. This is already something that's happening with the medical marijuana users. The government is currently using medical marijuana cards to cross-reference whether or not people have registered guns in certain states. So with that in mind, they're basically saying that this is a mind-altering drug and that people who have medical marijuana cards shouldn't be allowed the right to bear arms. I don't really understand how they can do that, and especially my main concern is that the medical marijuana, and marijuana in general, it's no different than alcohol. Somebody who is drunk is just as inebriated as somebody that's high, and in some ways, maybe even more. So I'm curious what you have to say about this. The number to call in is 619-924-0986, 619-924-0986. Anyway, one thing about the marijuana stuff, I'm curious how they're actually selling this, if they're getting your personal information when you buy recreational marijuana at these stores, if they're storing your information somewhere, if it's going to be used at some point to take away your gun rights. And I'm quite positive it will be. They're constantly trying to find any way to disarm us any way possible. So I can guarantee you that this will be used at some point. And like I said, they're already doing it with medical marijuana. So, if you have a medical marijuana card, just keep in mind that they may be out there cross-referencing. If you ever register a gun, you may lose your right to bear arms. You may already not be able to purchase a gun, during the federal background check system. So let me know what you guys have to say about that. Again, 619-924-0986, 619-924-0986. Okay, so another subject that I would really like to talk about is the minimum wage. In SeaTac, Washington, that's the little city there between Seattle and Tacoma. Basically, it consists of an airport, and it's become a big enough area now to be considered a city. So, and that's based on population. Anyway, the voters up there recently passed a bill for mandatory $15 minimum wage. $15 minimum wage. That's pretty crazy. They're calling this a living wage. They're saying that it's impossible for you to make a living off of minimum wage. The national rate is $7.25 an hour for minimum wage, but Washington actually exceeds the minimum wage of the national rate, and I believe they pay somewhere around $9.25 an hour, something like that, maybe $9.09. I can't remember. Anyway, SeaTac primarily consists of the airport, like I was saying, which it's the biggest business in the city. So one thing about the airport that I keep hearing is that everything in the airport is already extremely overpriced. And now all the employees are going to be earning $15 an hour? Let me ask you some questions here. What do you think is going to happen now that everything is $15 an hour? Do you think that prices in this airport are going to go up, or are they going to go down? Do you think that local businesses in the area, other local businesses other than the airport, will increase or decrease their prices? Because now they're going to be paying their employees $15 an hour too. In order to pay for increased costs, businesses will necessarily have to increase their prices. Not only that, but many will not even be able to afford to pay their employees $15 an hour, which will result in layoffs. I don't understand the logic behind minimum wage. It really does blow me away that people are still out there advocating for such high, ridiculous minimum wage prices. Anyway, I have the clip here from Herman Cain, former presidential candidate. He was, or nominee, I guess. He was running for president back in, I believe it was 2008, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, he's got a radio program, and he's very vocal about his stance on the minimum wage. Here he is.
Let's declare that in the wealthiest nation on earth, no one who works full-time should have to live in poverty, and raise the federal minimum wage to $9 an hour.
Well, President Obama wants to raise the minimum wage, but Herman Cain worries he'll raise the unemployment rate while he's at it. Check this out. Of the 8 states with an $8 or higher minimum wage, look at their unemployment rates. They're all well above the national average. Only 3 states are an exception. Herman's back to raise some cane. Herman, my friend, good to see you. What do you make of that? Now, you came from the fast food industry, and you know well the impact this will have. Tell some of your old colleagues and managers that they're going to have to up their minimum wage. What are they going to do?
Well, they're either going to have people work less hours, or they're going to hire less people. That's typically what happens. I saw it when I was at Godfather's, when I was at Burger King. I saw it when I was the president of the National Restaurant Association. Here's where the president is dead wrong. If you were to force a minimum wage increase from $7.25 to $9, guess what? They'll still be living in poverty. Raising the minimum wage is not going to get anybody out of poverty. Most of the reliable studies out there, Neil, shows that there's going to be job reduction for the people who need those jobs the most, and those are the people with the least amount of skills.
I always thought that rather than put the emphasis on forcibly raising the minimum wage and putting all sorts of headaches on business and maybe resulting in fewer hires, as you pointed out, maybe just improve the business climate so there are more jobs, period. But that's just me. But on the other thing, Herman, the argument for this is that, yes, the immediate reaction is a lot of people lose their jobs because managers, stores, restaurants, what have you, then start cutting back on workers. But things settle down, they start hiring again, off to the races again. What do you say?
Well, what I say is that's not totally accurate for the following reason. Businesses have only one option when costs are forced on them, and that is to eventually pass it on to the consumer. Now, the median income in the last 4 years, Neil, as you know, being the brave heart of business as you are, has gone from $54,000 to $50,000. People already have less money. So now you're going to ask them to pay more for what they pay at restaurants, even fast food and quick service restaurants. It doesn't work that way. The second thing that they're not taking into account is that most of the companies that hire a lot of minimum wage workers, they hire those minimum wage workers because they have very small profit margins. They don't have a lot of room to maneuver. People are trying to figure out how to basically handle Obamacare. And they're coming up with a lot of creative things in order to try to stay in business. Their assumptions are simply incorrect.
You know, obviously it's no skin off the president nose to push and tell businesses to hike the minimum wage. But it does put pressure on all businesses, and even those that hire beyond the minimum wage, right? Because all of a sudden the floor has risen, so all wages have to go up across the board. What is the long-term impact of that sort of thing? Because the president argues backwards, people argue back. Well, if business guys like Herman Cain had their way, we'd still be at an 85 cents an hour minimum wage. We would have never moved it up.
Here's another thing that the president and his advisors are not taking into account. In some states, they are already above the minimum wage, just like you showed with one of those opening charts.
Right.
The marketplace will determine what the wages should be. When I was at Godfather's Pizza, in some markets, we had to be above the minimum wage because of a shortage of workers. So allow the marketplace to do it. But you see, this illustrates the president and his advisors' total lack of business literacy. That's what we're dealing with here. And that's why he throws it out that, a $9 minimum wage. Now, Neil, 9 is my favorite number, but not in this case.
I'm wondering now what Republicans do in response, and because the president puts them clearly on defense, saying, well, then you're against the little guy, you're against the average Joe and Joanne. And how do you respond to that?
The way I respond to that is, in fact, Senator Marco Rubio said it best. I want people to make more than $9 an hour. How do you get people to make more than $9 an hour? You create a robust, growing economy, which is what this president and this administration, they have not done that. So now they are trying to paint lipstick on this flawed economic canvas by saying, let's raise the minimum wage and put all of those other programs out there that you talked about earlier and say, it's not going to cost a dime. Most of the American people that I have figured out, Neil, are not that stupid. Some people are, but most people are not that stupid to believe that.
Herman Cain, great seeing you again. Be well.
Thank you, Neil. Good to be with you.
Herman.
All right, so that was Herman Cain on the minimum wage. In my opinion, minimum wage jobs, they're not meant to be careers. McDonald's is not a career. It's a stepping stone. It's a job for kids or low-skilled laborers who want to gain some job experience and some skills that they can take to a better, higher-paying job. Now, don't get me wrong. These jobs, they're really important, and I'm not disparaging them in any way. But being a cashier at McDonald's, that's not a permanent career choice, or at least not a good one. If you're content with that, then you're content with not earning enough to live off of. These are the kind of jobs meant to teach people skills that they can either take with them to another company or utilize within the same company by moving up. You're not meant to be a cashier at McDonald's for the rest of your life. If you want to stay at McDonald's, that's great. They have other career opportunities. Move up in the ranks. I mean, one day you could be a CEO of McDonald's. That'd be awesome. But you have to start somewhere. You have to get your foot in the door, and most people do that at the ground level. And that's, in the mailroom of a major, Fortune 500 company, or, in McDonald's case, it's a cashier or a cook fry at McDonald's. I mean, this is the stuff that you have to do in order to get some job skills. Minimum wage is one of those things that shouldn't be there to basically make it all, fair. And as soon as you enter the workforce, you're able to start paying for a family. It's not one of those things. Here's what I don't get about what advocates for minimum wage don't understand. I don't understand how they don't understand this. If McDonald's is forced to pay more to their employees through forced minimum wage, their products will have to cost more because now their labor costs more. If this process extended state or even nationwide, you can see the ripple effect. For example, the national minimum wage right now is $7.25 per hour. If a burger sells for $6 when the employees are making $7.25 per hour, that same burger would cost at least $12.41 to purchase when the employees are paid $15 per hour, at least. Now, it may even be more because it's not just the people that are being paid $15 an hour at that place, at McDonald's. It could be more now for everything. You got to think about the transporting, the packaging of the products, them buying the stuff to make the burgers. All this stuff necessarily increases the price. But even just at $12.41, to buy a burger, are you really prepared to pay almost $13 for a burger? How does that help you? How can you imagine this statewide, nationwide, if everybody is now making $15 an hour? In theory, that sounds great. If you just look at, I got $15 an hour. That's great. I feel great because my paycheck is now more. That's awesome. No, it's not, because now every single thing that you buy is now more expensive. Everything went up because it had to. The price to actually make that thing, the price of that service is now more expensive because they have to pay those employees even more money. I don't understand. Minimum wage, it actually decreases the buying power of the dollar. So I don't really understand how you can't see that. Even worse than that, it's actually, giving everyone else who's making above minimum wage, the people who've earned their way out of minimum wage by gaining job experience and education and skills, those people are now getting a huge pay cut. So imagine somebody, let's say you are already earning $15 an hour. That's pretty good because it only costs $6 for a burger. Okay? Now everybody gets paid $15 an hour. And to include you, because it's not like they're going to raise your pay up just to make it equal, come up with some kind of ratio to where now you're getting paid like $22 an hour or something like that. No, they're not going to do that because their cost just went up throughout the whole company. They're going to be looking at how to downsize. So you making $15 an hour, you're now making minimum wage, where before you were making more than minimum wage. You were double minimum wage, so you were doing pretty good. Now, all the prices have doubled, and you're still making the same amount of money that you were before. You've taken a 50% reduction in pay, basically. These people have earned their way out of minimum wage. These are the people that went to college. These are the people that got some job experience. These are the people that got skills. Even if they're making way more than $15 an hour, they earned that. That's money that they did. Are you going to really punish successful people? Minimum wage is a progressive idea, and it spreads around the wealth. It's socialism at its best, or maybe I should say worst, depending on how you look at it, I guess. It punishes successful people. It kills jobs. It destroys businesses. It makes America less competitive. It devalues the dollar. And it doesn't help to bring people out of poverty. In fact, it only ensures that everyone is equally impoverished. And that's a progressive idea that people love, is bringing all the rich down, bringing them to a lower level, getting rid of the middle class and making sure everyone is the lower class. It doesn't make any sense to punish successful people, because successful people trickle down money to other employees. If you have a business and you're doing really well, you'll hire more people, you'll get employees, and that's stimulating the economy, because now these employees have a job and now they're spending money. Now, people say, back in the day, people, were getting paid really crappy amount of money but the dollar went a lot further. There's no need to have a minimum wage at all, in my opinion. If you want to talk about global competitiveness, okay, let's look at ourselves and compare ourselves to like China and Russia, okay? China and Russia, they're not creating these kind of fiscal policies that are basically tying their economic hands behind their back. These kind of policies make it really difficult on business owners. And in fact, I know several business owners firsthand that have told me that if their business was forced to pay $15 minimum wage to their employees, they'd either have to move out of the state, or if it was a national thing, they'd go out of business. They just could not afford to do that. And if they did, they would absolutely have to increase the price, which, unless it was being done on a national scale, they wouldn't be competitive in the market anymore, and they certainly wouldn't be competitive on the global market. You can't possibly compete with a country that doesn't have a minimum wage in the global market, because your prices are vastly, vastly more expensive. But I mean, let's even look at, like, for the laborers and the workers, okay? Sweatshops. A lot of people think that sweatshops are really bad, and I'm not going to deny that their conditions may be a little rough, and they may be bad, and they could be horrible. I've never been in a sweatshop myself, so I'm kind of speaking from no experience here. But what I do know is that those employees are choosing to work in that sweatshop. Why would somebody choose to work in a sweatshop? Because they pay more than other jobs that they can get. They wouldn't be there if they had no choice. They wouldn't be there if it wasn't the best place for them to be to earn a living for their family. Well, why is that? Because the employers, they recognize that the conditions aren't great, the work is tough, it's a strenuous job, and they want to encourage people to come there. They want to reduce attrition. Just like Henry Ford, when he increased the pay $5 per day. I told you I was going to bring this back up. Now I am. So Henry Ford, back in the day, I think it was 1914, I was saying, today in 1914, January 5th, 1914, he increased his pay per day to $5 per day for his employees. The pay back then was, I think it was like $2.84 or something like that. And like I was saying, he actually did this on his own, and he did it because he wanted to be more competitive. Free market in capitalism, it's not pro-business. It's not. Capitalism isn't pro-business at all. It's actually pro-consumer and pro-laborer, because it allows you to have these companies competing against each other. It allows the companies it actually forces the companies to compete for business and compete for employees. If we didn't have a minimum wage, we would have people earning more money in comparison to what the dollar would earn them. The dollar would earn them a heck of a lot more money, even if they weren't making as much. They would actually be making a livable wage. They were doing it back in the day with Henry Ford. $5 per day, that was a lot of money back then. You could earn, or you could pay for your family to survive back then. That was something that you could afford to do. Anyway, the bottom line is that choice means freedom. And when the government starts regulating employers and employees' choices, it's regulating freedom. We need to get out of this mindset that the government can protect us and will take care of us, because, let me be honest with you, they can't. And they won't. I mean, it's, especially when we talk about the government protecting us, if the government could protect us, things like 9/11 would have never happened. All right, let's say that you're arguing with the fact that, well, we didn't know, we were caught sleeping basically, and now, we've given the government more power through the National Defense Authorization Act and the Patriot Act, that this kind of thing can't happen again. Well, what happened at the Boston Marathon bombing? The government can't protect you. If they could, that would have never happened. all the stuff that you hear in the news about how the government is catching and putting a stop to terrorist plots, it's because these terrorist plots were created from the government in the first place. So, anyway, that's what I have to say. The FBI has been infiltrating these terrorist groups, and some of them are just getting individuals and convincing them to go do an attack or something, and then they give them fake bombs, and then they arrest them. It's basically entrapment. But anyway, that's a story for another day. My point is that the government is not here to protect you. They don't care about you. They don't want to protect you or to take care of you. And minimum wage is just a way for them to impoverish us all equally. The government can't create wealth. They don't know how to create wealth. The only thing that they know how to do is to destroy wealth or steal it. Everything the government owns was stolen from you and I. Think about that. Anyway, I'd like to hear what you have to say. Give us a call. I want to hear your take on the issues we've talked about today. We got another segment of the show coming up here, and we're still going to be continuing with the Mack attack when I get back from this break. Give us a call. The number is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at onthemoveshow@gmail.com and give us your take on it. All right, at this point, we're going to cut to a quick commercial break, and I will be back.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support.
Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
All right, we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. Okay, so when we last left off, we were talking about the minimum wage, and previously today we've talked about the legalization of recreational marijuana. If you'd like to join in the conversation, the number is 619-924-0986, 619-924-0986, or you can email the show at onthemoveshow.com, or I'm sorry, onthemoveshow@gmail.com, and give us your take on what you think about this. All right, so the next thing that I'd like to talk about here, and we're still within the Mack attack, my rant here, is the female fitness standards within the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps has recently included women in combat positions in an effort to basically make women and men equal inside the military. We've recently had a lot of discussion and controversy about this. And basically, they have allowed women to take combat positions now, which they hadn't in the past. And anyway, the Marines had set it up to where the females were required to pass the same physical fitness standards as the men. And, that seems like it should be a fair thing to do. However, now approximately about 50% of the female Marines who've been tested have actually failed the physical fitness test. So they've decided to basically delay the implementation of these female fitness standards. And the problem was pull-ups. They were required to do 3 pull-ups. 3 pull-ups. As far as this, I'm kind of torn on this. I think that women should be equal. I think women have equal rights. I think they want to fight and die for their country, or if they want to do something that a man can do, I think they should be allowed. However, it does create unique issues inside of our military that need to be addressed. But one of the primary things that I think we need to talk about is fairness. I don't think it's fair that a woman has a different physical fitness standard than a man. If they are claiming that they are equal to a man and that they are capable of doing the same job that a man does, why are we giving them different standards? Why are we allowing them to play the weaker sex card when all we hear from feminists is that there is no weaker sex? So if there is no weaker sex, then why is there a different standard? There's so many, not even just relating to physical fitness standards. There's so many double standards when it comes to women in the military. For example, women in the military, if you get pregnant, you can opt to just get out of the military. And it has absolutely nothing to do if you're married or single or not. As a woman, you can choose if you're pregnant to get out of the military. But if you're a man and your wife gets pregnant, you can't choose to get out of the military. That's a bit of a double standard, don't you think? In my opinion, I don't think it's fair, but there's a whole bunch of different things like that actually is going on like that, and these are just things that I've noticed. So if we're going to talk about the actual double standards and the fairness and how women and men are equal, we need to truly start treating each other as equals. We need to treat our women in the military, and I'm not disparaging them in any way. I think they're doing great things, and if they want to fight for their country, they should be able to, in my opinion. I know some of you may not agree with that, but I think they should be able to. They're accepting the risks. There is, however, other risks and other things that may happen that could put others at risk. I don't really know how that would work, and we don't really know until we try it, and we won't know the effect of this until we see it firsthand. So I think we should at least give them a chance. But anyway, I think that the actual standards of especially to join a combat position should be the same, because they're going to be going into combat. If I'm going into combat and I have somebody next to me that I know is physically weaker than me or not physically capable of passing the same fitness standards, then I'm going to be a little bit self-conscious or conscious about how they're going to take care and how they're going to get my back, basically. Are they going to be able to drag me to safety if I get shot? Are they going to be, pulling the, I can't do that card? These are things that are going to be on my mind. I don't know if it'll be on yours, but, now, and I'm not saying that there are women out there that can't pass this, because there definitely are. And in fact, I'm sure that there's a lot of women out there that will do better than the average man on these tests. That's what I'm saying. That's my whole point, is that it is possible for females to get fit enough to meet these standards. And if we're not going to actually, enforce these standards and make them fair and realize that, if the woman is not physically capable of doing the job, then perhaps she shouldn't do the job. Anyway, I have a clip here from, I believe this is Fox News, and I will play it for you real quick, and they're talking about the delay of the female fitness standards.
Hello and good morning. 23 minutes after the hour. Do you have to do pull-ups to be a combat Marine? That's the question after the Marine Corps delays its new female fitness plan because half of women were unable to do 3 pull-ups. For a fair and balanced debate, we're joined now by retired U.S. Marine Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Jane Duff and former Marine Corps Captain Anu Bhagwati. Good morning, ladies. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us. Good morning.
First, I'd like everybody at home to see the differences between the men and the women on this fitness test. For the women, 3 pull-ups minimum, 8 for a perfect score. Men, they do 3 pull-ups minimum, 20 for a perfect score. But the women also have these other options now because many of them were not able to do the pull-ups. A flexed arm hang for 15 seconds, 70 seconds for a perfect score. The men don't even have that as an option. I'll start with you, Gunnery Sergeant Duff. What do you think about the differences in the plans to begin with?
Well, my problem isn't so much the differences, is that the Marine Corps didn't prepare these women to succeed at this mission. They decided to send them to boot camp and not have them prepared, and you've got 55% that are incapable of accomplishing this. Does that say that the women can't do it? No. It says that the Marine Corps did not train them effectively. And for me, that is not a positive statement for the Marine Corps to be sending out about the females who are there to put their lives on the line for their country.
Okay, well, Captain, what do you think? I mean, do you agree with this? Should it be delayed because the women are failing, or is this a bad idea to begin with?
No, I don't think there should be a delay. I've always believed that there should be a single physical fitness standard for Marines, regardless of their gender. The Marine Corps needs to set the standard high. A Marine should be able to do pull-ups, period, regardless of whether he's a guy or a woman. The Marine Corps needs to set that standard, that single standard. Officers need to enforce that single standard. Troops need to train to that single standard, and they will be able to achieve that single standard. You know, when I was a commander, I did pull-ups. My Marines did pull-ups. We didn't separate the women from the men. We were all Marines, and we can do this. We just need to, like any athlete, set a goal and achieve that goal.
Gunnery Sergeant Duff, I mean, what do you think? Being a fitness person, I know there's more than one way to get over an obstacle, right? You don't necessarily have to pull yourself up. You can use a leg or something else. But this has been a huge point of contention for people who say women don't even belong in combat positions. What do you say to them?
Okay, so this isn't about a physical fitness test that all genders should have, because you're not going to lower the standards for men and raise the standards for women. Then you're not going to grade fitness. The physical fitness test is not an equality. It's about fitness based upon gender and age. So we need to set a standard for these females that they're going to accomplish. My problem is that you don't send them off to training and not have them able to meet that standard. You train them. What happened? How do we have 55% not graduating, succeeding at this mission? So women do belong in the Marine Corps. I served 20 years supporting the infantry and combat operations, and let me tell you, it's a hard job. We can't take that away from our ladies, but they need to train them so that they're capable of doing this and not embarrassing the Corps like this.
Captain Anu, I mean, 3 pull-ups, it's the same minimum for both men and women, but when 50% of the women are failing, does that mean there needs to be some sort of delay, or what's the best plan for integrating women into these positions?
You know, measuring fitness at boot camp is a wrong place to go about doing this. But actually, if you look at physical fitness test scores at the beginning of boot camp and at the end of the boot camp, many Marines actually become weaker over the course of 10 to 13 weeks of training because your body is completely broken down. If you want to build muscle mass, you need to do that over a longer period of time. You know, I would like to see our recruits better prepared, as the Gunny was saying, before going into boot camp. We need to be recruiting and training our recruits to perform better throughout their Marine Corps career. And if they are not training in high school or college, they're not going to be ready to knock out 20 pull-ups in boot camp.
Well, a lot of people fired up about this morning. Thanks for that fair and balanced debate to Gunnery Sergeant Duff and Captain Anu Bagwadi. We appreciate it.
All right, so that's what they had to say in regards to that. I want to hear what you have to say. Give us a call. The number is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at onthemoveshow@gmail.com and let me know what you have to say. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be back with our next segment, the Listener Challenge. So thanks for sticking with us. We'll be back in about a minute.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support.
Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.
And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. All right, at this point, we're going to go ahead and start our next segment. It's called the Listener Challenge.
I challenge you to a duel. Did you hear that? Sounds like it's time for a challenge. Listener Challenge. Listener Challenge. Listener Challenge. Listener Challenge.
All right, this is the segment of the show where I challenge you to get active, to get on the move. Again, this is a activism movement. This is your movement. This is the On the Move movement. You can become a Macktivist in the movement. All you have to do is accept this challenge. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to talk to an Obama supporter or a liberal. I'm sure a lot of you have at least one of these guys on your friends in your Facebook where you've debated and you've argued with this person over and over again. Well, you know what? I challenge you to find out why they're still supporting these kind of policies. Now, I don't want you to debate with them. I want you to avoid debating with them as much as possible. Okay, I just want you to kind of listen to them and write down what they're saying. All right, get in their head. Find out why they feel the way that they do. Now, why am I asking you to do this? Well, in my opinion, I think it's important that we know what our opposition thinks. I think it's important that we also give them a chance to lay out their arguments. And the reason why is because we can take this information apart and we can give them compelling arguments and information on other ways they can go about doing it. There's an ancient philosophy, I believe this is an ancient Greek philosophy, and it says know thy enemy, or something along those lines. Anyway, it's kind of that same thing. You should know your enemy. You keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Know what they're doing. And I'm not saying these people are my enemies. I have no problem with liberals other than the fact that they try to regulate everything under the sun, and most of them are extremely misinformed. But I have found that many liberals are good people. You know, for the most part, however, their opinions are typically based on emotions. They want people to be safe. There's nothing wrong with that. They want people to be treated fairly and decently. That's great. Those are great causes. Many of them, however, are misguided. The Democratic Party is fraught with uninformed voters. Many Democrats who do seek information end up finding only propaganda. You know, and one thing in the Democratic Party is that they like to skew polls. They like to give up inaccurate science, or sometimes they just outright lie. Michael Bloomberg, he's been caught numerous times lying. And then when the truth comes out, the uninformed voters inside the Democratic Party, they don't hear about it, so they don't find out that it was just a lie. So all they hear is what he put in his commercial where he outspent people, you know, millions of dollars. Michael Bloomberg is one of the richest men in the world, so he can flood the TV with lies on advertisements, and he can outspend anybody. And you're going to see his lies over and over and over again, and you may have like one little snippet on the news where he was caught lying, or in an NRA magazine or something where somebody puts the proof out there, but it's not able to match the kind of money that this billionaire is able to spend to get his lies out there. So, and it's not just him, it's a lot of people within the Democratic Party, within the progressive movement, and you know, a lot of these people that are really good people, and they want to see good things happening for people. They don't want to see people be poor. They don't want to see people, you know, be mistreated, and they don't want to see injustice in the world. They think that voting for liberal and progressive agendas is the way to go, but they don't understand that they're really violating people's rights. So anyway, back to this week's challenge. You know, we're going to call this a recon mission, okay? If you would like to do it, I would appreciate it. I want you to learn as much as possible from an Obama supporter or a liberal of your choosing. And on the next show, call in. All right? I want to hear what they had to say. We'll go over their responses and take them apart together on the next show. All right? So let me know. And on the next show, you give us a call. The phone number is 619-924-0986, or you can email the show and let me know what they had to say. That way, you know, you don't have to be on the program if you're, you know, kind of shy or something. So anyway, another topic that I'd like to quickly bring up here in an unrelated matter here is the government is currently going through and regulating the incandescent light bulbs. They're putting more and more regulations on them, and they're basically making it to the point where they're going to phase them out for these energy-efficient light bulbs that we're seeing everywhere. Now, I don't have a problem with energy-efficient light bulbs, and I don't have a problem with people buying them, but what I do have a problem with is more and more government regulation. And again, we see the government is picking winners and losers. They're deciding what industry is going to succeed and which one isn't, and they're doing this under the guise of global warming and under the whole EPA thing, where the EPA can regulate things because it's producing more carbon, or it's a danger to the environment or something like that. So my problem with this is the fact that we're allowing the government to use the EPA and other organizations within the federal government to basically usurp more and more power they weren't originally supposed to be doing. Why is the government able to tell us that we can't buy a certain kind of light bulb? We've been buying this light bulb for years. Nothing was wrong with it. There is no problem. The problem is they're using the global warming basically theory, which it's based on lies. That science that I was talking about, that inaccurate science, it's been proven over and over again. Scientists are coming out in droves saying that there's no such thing as global warming. And then they change what it is now. Now it's not global warming. Now it's climate change. All right? It's not the same thing as it was before. So they keep changing what it is, and it's all an attempt to gain more power. One thing that I actually think is hilarious, and this has been out in the news recently, and I hope you all have caught it, is that there is actually a group of global warming scientists that went out to the, I believe it was Antarctica. They were trying to get to Antarctica. And they ended up getting stuck in the ice because the ice was unusually thick out there. It was thicker than it's ever been, basically. And then a Chinese ship went out there to save them and rescue them, and that ship got stuck. So, I mean, it's pretty hilarious to me that they go out there to prove global warming is a real thing, and now they basically prove themselves wrong because they're trying to say that the polar ice caps are melting, and at some point we're never going to see that snow again, and we're going to be the last generation to actually see snow. And I think at one point I heard Al Gore saying something about in 5 years there won't be any more snow. And to me, it is hilarious that these people are on record out there saying these ridiculous claims, and they've been debunked. It's all been proven wrong. So anyway, with that said, I have a clip here of what happened on the boat there, or they're talking about how people were stuck out there, stranded in there. So let me find the clip real quick, and I will play it for you if I can find it. Oh, here we go. All right, I'll be right back.
The stranded passengers happily point to a dot on the horizon. Others cheer help is near.
What's that on the horizon, Chris? That's the icebreaker coming to rescue us, look. Brilliant.
But their relief doesn't last long. Thick ice has forced the Chinese icebreaker, the Snow Dragon, to come to a halt.
He was about 6 nautical miles away when that decision was made that the ice was too thick. It was beyond the vessel's capacity, and he turned around and went back through the channel that he'd created to open water.
A French rescue vessel also failed to penetrate the ice and has been turned back. But reinforcements are on the way. The Australian ship Aurora Australis is en route and is expected to arrive Sunday evening. The Australian vessel is stronger than the Snow Dragon. It has a higher ice rating. In other words, it can cut through ice as deep as 1.35 meters compared to the Snow Dragon's 1 meter or so. But we're hearing reports that the ice in the area is as deep as 2 meters, and that can mean those on board will have to be winched to safety by the helicopter on board the Chinese vessel. For now, they're not in danger. There's enough fresh food to last 2 weeks and dried food for longer if needed. But Chris Turney, who is leading the expedition, says he's worried blizzards could hamper the rescue efforts.
We've got some snow falling, but it's not too windy. Unfortunately, the weather forecast is these sort of conditions to continue for the next few days.
In the meantime, the 74 people on board, which consist of scientists, tourists and crew, are updating family with daily YouTube messages.
Hey Mom and Dad, I hope you're enjoying the summer as much as I am. As you have probably heard, we are currently beset in a bit of ice, but not to worry, everything's going well.
So well, it seems they are continuing their research, counting birds and drilling through the ice to photograph sea life. The team is retracing the footsteps taken by Australian explorer Douglas Mawson in 1911. He mapped out the Antarctic region but faced a harrowing journey. Stranded, with no companions, no food and no icebreaker, he had to wait a year for the ice to melt. Isa Suarez, CNN, London.
All right, so I don't know if you noticed, but they didn't mention anything about the global warming scientists out there. They didn't mention the fact that one of the parts of the mission of being out there was to prove that the ice caps are melting and that global warming is happening and it's a really awful and negative thing that's going on to our planet and that we're affecting this change. We're responsible for the polar bears dying, and we're responsible for the loss of habitat for these polar animals. They didn't mention the fact that they were out there for that. Why aren't they mentioning that? Why isn't it being covered? Well, I'll tell you why. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know that this is all about global warming because it totally discredits global warming. Global warming is a money maker. I'm not a scientist, but I can read. I am capable of reading. And I like to think that I'm not an idiot. Maybe I am. I don't know. But it doesn't make sense to me that scientists all around the world are saying that it's not a real thing, that there is no global warming, and they're showing statistics to prove it, and yet, we have people like Al Gore and Obama. These are politicians saying that this science is settled and that anybody who has any doubt about global warming is a flat earther, saying that we're on par with somebody that believed back in Christopher Columbus's day that the world was flat. The science is not settled. Scientists are currently arguing about this. And now we have Obama who's using the federal agencies to try to prove that global warming is real. I don't understand how he's able to get away with doing this. He's using the same thing with the Centers for Disease Control to prove that gun violence is a problem bigger than it is, and that he's trying to basically prove that areas that have lax gun laws are basically having more crime. And what they're doing is they're taking these numbers and they're using them in manipulative ways to try to basically trick people. So they'll take, little sections of dates and they'll say, oh, this one had a spike, for this reason because, something happened unrelated to what the study's about. But they're basically trying to use this information to create more gun laws and to create more panic. And they use that with global warming. Everything is related. The more I do this, the more I can see everything is linked. Everything, every news story in some way relates to other news stories. And the biggest one that relates to everything is global warming. I'll be covering this in a lot more detail later, but global warming is a moneymaker. Global warming will make Obama and his cronies billions. He's already set up things like the Chicago Carbon Exchange, where basically if we pay if we're paying our carbon taxes, it's end up lining the pockets of Obama and Goldman Sachs and all these other multi-million-dollar companies, and it's a political kickback fund. It's a way of giving money back to his political supporters. If you don't believe me, look it up, all right? Just look up the Chicago Carbon Exchange on Google, and you'll find a whole lot of useful information, and it's going to be a rabbit hole, I promise you. You will find so many different links that will take you different places. Global warming is being used right now to not only try to increase energy cost, to impoverish us all. Global warming is being used to try to say that our bullets, the lead in them, first of all, the manufacturing of it is a process that creates a lot of carbon in our atmosphere. So that's a problem. They want to eliminate pollution because carbon has been considered a pollutant, even though every time I breathe, I just release carbon. I'm polluting, and I'm using quotey fingers, I'm polluting every time I breathe. At some point, is it going to get to the point where we have to pay a tax to breathe? What happens if we can't afford to pay that tax? Are we fined? Do we get a fine, or are we arrested? You know, this is the kind of thing that it leads. Everything with the government is a slippery slope. When we start giving them power and ability to do things and make regulations, they end up basically going crazy with it. They go mad with power, and it always goes a step further than we intended. It's never exactly what you intended. And the government, like I said before, they don't give up power. They have no interest in giving up power. All they want to do is take more and more power, and that's what global warming's about. That's what these carbon taxes are about. You know, they use their entities like the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, and they try to regulate our freedom. They're going to regulate it all, and it doesn't matter how they do it. Right now, what they're looking for is any excuse. In global warming, climate change, it's all an excuse. That's all it is, to take away your power, to take away your individual liberty, and to usurp more power for themselves. So, anyway, that's what I have to say about that. I'd like to hear what you guys have to say. Give us a call. We got a few more minutes left in the show here. I can take one call or so. The phone number is 619-924-0986. Again, that's 619-924-0986. Or you can email the show at onthemoveshow@gmail.com and let me know what you have to say. And if I'm not able to get your email this show, I can read it off next show on the air. But anyway, as far as that, I also have some information here about a constitutional study group that I started here in Washington, Southwest Washington, here in Vancouver. We've been meeting on once a month. We usually do it on Sunday at 1 p.m. Once a month. The Sunday kind of alternates. It depends on when we can get it, but I try to do it somewhere around the third Sunday of the month. So anyway, if you're interested, you can either email me at onthemoveshow@gmail.com, and I'll provide you all the information that you need in order to attend, or you can actually go to Facebook. We've created a group on there. It's facebook.com/groups/Constitutional Study Group. And you know, if you're not anywhere near Vancouver, but you like the whole idea of starting a constitutional study group, let me know. If you're interested in starting a group, I will help you get one off the ground. That's the whole point of what I'm doing here, activism. You know, getting people active, getting people on the move. That's a big part of this. So I've actually got word that somebody is taking my lead on this, and they've actually shown some interest in starting a group up in Seattle. I don't know what's happening up there, but I told them to keep me updated. I would absolutely love to hear that a group is started in Seattle for a constitutional study group. If you're interested in doing it, let me know. I'll give you all the information I have and how to start it, and give you any advice that I can give you. I mean, I'm not an expert on the Constitution, but that's the point of it. It's a study group. We're coming together to study and to learn. I've also been creating videos on that study group. We have the entire study sessions that are on there. We've had 2 sessions so far, and you can find those videos at youtube.com/onthemoveshow. So all the videos are there, and I'll continue to post them on there. And if you can't attend but you would like to learn, and you're not interested in starting your own group, feel free to check out those videos, because they have a lot of really good information. And every time I go there, I leave with new information, and my mind is blown. But anyway, so that's our show for today. I appreciate everybody tuning in and listening to it. I want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in every week. We really do appreciate your continued support. If you'd like to get some more information about On the Move Show, you can do so at onthemoveshow.com, here at blogtalkradio.com/onthemoveshow, facebook.com/onthemoveshow, youtube.com/onthemoveshow, and twitter.com/onthemoveshow. Make sure you get a hold of me. Let me know what you think of the show. I'd really like to hear your take on everything. So anyway, like I said, that's the show. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, get on the move.
We're Oscar Mike.
Support On the Move. Help us make this podcast bigger and better. You can do this by going to our store and purchasing one of our hundreds of products. All designs are original and made for patriots like you. Just go to cafepress.com/onthemoveshow. We appreciate your support.
Need design services? Logo design for $90, business cards, brochures, bumper stickers, signs, flyers, promotional products such as mugs, pins, bags, keychains, magnets, and so much more. Contact LaTasha Worley for a quote on your next project at Tasha, Tosha, at lworleyphotography.com today, or visit me on the web at lworleyphotography.com, and on Facebook at facebook.com/lworleyphotography, and on Twitter at twitter.com/Tasha Worley. Show your support for a designer who believes in the Constitution and your rights.